Welcome back to World Traveler Cooking, to another Tuesday episode. Today we are going to make Russian Solyanka. I've already done an East German Solyanka, and you'll start to see that these dishes are very different. The East German version is sort of an East German inspired, it's an East German version of a soup that was clearly inspired by the Russian soup, but in fact they're made completely differently, with different ingredients. And they only kind of share some outward similarities. As far as I can tell, the name of the soup is probably named after the river in Russia, and from there it spread out into various different places. It's a popular soup today in Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, basically this is a soup that people put a wide variety of things into. We're going to make a meat Solyanka today. At some point I might also do a fish Solyanka or a mushroom Solyanka. Those might be interesting also. So this is the original version, the version that inspired the East German version that I covered some time ago. Now, the key of Solyanka includes pickles, and we're just going to use pickled cucumbers here. Some of the recipes I was able to find also include pickled tomatoes. These are common in Russian cuisine, but they're not so easy to find elsewhere. If I get them here in Indonesia, I have to pre-order them and they get imported from Russia. So we're just going to use locally made pickled cucumbers today. We'll also have some olives, tomato paste, of course onions. For this much I'll probably put in 2. And then I have a mixture of meats. I have some pieces of beef rib here. I have some pork shoulder around the shoulder blade, and this should cook nicely in a soup quickly. And then I have basically some chicken legs. So we're going to take all of this together, we're going to boil it, we'll skim off the broth, and this will start to be our broth. I am going to salt the broth a bit. And then we will prepare the rest of our ingredients. Some people add the cucumbers right away to or the pickles right away to the meat. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to add the pickle juice a little bit later when I add the onions and olives. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is going to be way more than enough for this pot, so I'll probably have to transfer things into a larger pot, or maybe not use all of this for this batch. I am going to salt this now. Keep in mind we want to undersalt because we will add pickles, pickle juice, and tomato paste, and olives, and those will all effectively increase the salt content. So we're going to bring this to a boil, and then we'll start skimming off the scum that forms at the top. In the meantime, we'll prepare our onions. So here you can see some of this scum forming. So we're just going to take a slotted spoon and scoop it off. And we'll do that a few times through this process while the meat cooks and becomes the broth. You can let this cook for a long time, or you can cook it for less time. A lot of recipes I've seen say about an hour or so. May take longer, may take less time. In the meantime, we have cut our onions into quarter rounds. This is fairly common in Russian cooking. And then later we will saute these onions, so that's how they're prepared. I'm going to take the pickles, I'm going to run them through a box grater, and for the olives I may slice them. So this has now been boiling for about half an hour, and I'm going to start pulling the bones out, cutting the meat and putting it back in. I'll be back when that's done. So now I've taken the meat off the bones. I've left the chicken feet in, and I've added some more water so that I have kind of a nice soupy consistency. And into this I'm going to add my shredded pickles. So here I've added the pickles, and we're going to bring it to a boil. At the same time, I'm going to start to saute my onions. And then after tasting it, I will add pickle brine to taste. You taste this again. Make sure it's about right. I'm just going to add the rest, I think. Then we saute our onions. We'll add that and the olives together. I've sliced about half of the olives into rounds. We'll add those in along with whole olives, but we'll get our onions sauteed first. To a hot wok or pan, add a bit of oil, and then we will saute our onions until they're nice and translucent. Now for this many onions, a wok is really nice, but it doesn't have to be a wok. For a smaller amount, you could use a big frying pan. Okay, so I have decided I needed a larger pot, so I've added one. These onions are looking very nice, so I'm going to add them to my pot. Put the pot back over here. And in go the onions into the larger pot. We'll stir this and figure out whether we need a lot more water or not. I think we need a little bit more, but not a huge amount. So I'll add that, adjust seasonings, and then we add our tomato. Please note, I had forgot to add the olives, so we're going to do this now. Let them cook for a moment to release the salt. That were the sliced ones. Now we're going to add the whole ones, because variety is the spice of this dish. So we're going to let this cook up a little bit, then we'll taste it and see how the salting is and correct that if we need to. And then we'll add our tomato. I'm going to move the camera around so you can see better. So here we have this around, and so you can see kind of the consistency. And as I say, we're just going to let this cook for like 5 minutes. Then we'll taste it, add salt if we need to, and then add our tomato. And then we'll cook it another 5 minutes and we'll be done. Now after tasting this, it needed a little more salt, but rather than add salt, I just added the rest of the olive brine and it looks like we're good. So next up, the tomatoes. So basically, way to do this, basically take a big spoonful of tomato paste, stir it in, let it thicken and repeat until you have the consistency and color that you would like. The amount that you can add depends on so many other factors, like how much water you've added, how much broth you have, and the consistency of your tomato paste, that I don't really think a single amount can really do it. So I'm going to put this in as to taste, but in this case it was 4 large spoons. And I think that's right. I think that's just about where we want it. So next up, we'll do the taste test. So for the taste test, I'm just serving some out into a bowl. And I'm going to garnish with a piece of lemon. You can also serve with like a lemon wedge on the side, but people like lemon on the top. So here we have our Solyanka. Next up, the taste test. And now for the taste test. Right away, this looks very different from East German Solyanka. I mean, they're both red. You have a bit of tomato in them, but that's about where the similarity ends. This soup has a brightly sour flavor from the pickle juice and the pickles. A rich flavor from the meat. Now I'm going to grab a piece of olive and taste it. And the olives go really, really well in this version. I've tried olives in the East German version and they just don't go. This is, again, an indication that despite surface similarities and cross-inspiration, these are completely different soups. Now, if you like this content and you'd like to see more of it, please like, share, subscribe. Helps this channel grow. It's completely free to do. If you want to support my work or you want to follow me other places, I'll put a list of other places down below. And if you make a dish like this and you make it different, people put all kinds of things in Solyanka. Very oftentimes they'll put ham, sausage, salami, you name it. Please tell me what you like to see in it, and also where you're from, because as I said before, this dish is, while it came out of Russia, it's actually very popular in a number of other countries, including actually Ukraine as well as Belarus. And as I say, it inspired a soup with the same name in the DDR. So that's what I have for you today. Recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.